Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Joy-Filled Universe podcast. I am your host, Lisa Ryan, and today I would like to talk about something that I have been hearing myself say over and over again lately, and I've also heard people say it around me too. And it goes something like, oh my gosh, is it already the end of May? Where is this year going? Because before we know it, it's going to be the holidays already. And I know that's really bad acting, but you get the flick, right? Time is moving fast. And I feel like this is a very normal thing for adults that are out there, which begs a very obvious question, which is, why do we tend to feel this way? Why does time feel like it moves so quickly as we get older? Because when we were children, the school year felt like an enormous amount of time, and the wait for occasions like birthdays or holidays, they just felt like an eternity. However, flash forward into adult life and we blink and somehow it's May. We blink again and it's the holidays, and then the next thing you know, we're ringing in 2027. So the months become years, and the years, they just seem to pass in an instant. And honestly, I don't necessarily think it's because time itself is moving any faster. No, I personally think that it is because so many of us have slowly disconnected from being truly present and intentional with our own lives. Okay? Now, I'm going to say too that this whole time moving quickly as we get older concept has been looming over me for a little while now. And when things like this happen, I become so nose down curious in reading material, podcasts, TED Talks, you name it, trying to come up with an answer that makes sense to me. So for today's pod, I'm going to share what I have learned. And once again, one of my very favorites, who happens to be Mr. Dr. Joe Dispenza, or I should just say Dr. Joe Dispenza, was a wealth of information for me. And I love this guy. And one of these days, I'm going to go to one of his events. It is absolutely on my list. However, you know what else is on my list? Traveling the world and experiencing different cultures. So maybe I can find Dr. Dispenza's event in some country that I absolutely want to explore, and I'll make it like a 2-for-1. I mean, that would be amazing, right? Okay, put it on the vision board. Okay, but for today, Dr. Joe is a wealth of information, and I truly appreciated what I had recently been exploring about his work around thoughts, emotions, and subconscious programming. And I also want to add here too that I am going to weave in my interpretations and expansion on some of Dr. Joe's ideas through my own lived experiences and observations and info that I have collected over time too. And I'm just going to start by saying that one of the things Dr. Dispenza says that has absolutely stuck with me for a long time now is thoughts are the vocabulary of the mind, and emotions are the vocabulary of our body. And that in and of itself can explain so much about the human experience, because most people think the same thoughts every day. In fact, the average human thinks about 60,000 thoughts a day, and a majority of those thoughts are the same thoughts that we've had yesterday, the same thoughts that we had the day prior, which means that whatever emotions we experience from these repetitive thoughts also show up for us again and again. And the emotions reinforce our behaviors, which virtually creates the same experience day in and day out. And if we do nothing to change this pattern, we become emotionally conditioned to our past, which means we rehearse the same worries, the same stress, same disappointments, fears, and identities, all up until our bodies become so familiar to those emotional states that they begin to feel normal to us. So normal that, say we are someone who is used to feeling sad and defeated and alone in life, and by some fleeting chance we wake up and feel like somewhat excited about the day, we will literally look for a reason to remind ourselves of our normal state, and we will quickly return to that low vibe frequency because the higher frequency doesn't feel familiar to us. And I think that what Dr. Joe Dispenza called this was subconscious programming and automatic behavior, which I translate into meaning that many people eventually get to a point where they stop consciously creating their lives and instead begin unconsciously repeating them. So when I thought about this, I became very aware of my Monday through Friday, which is extremely routine, right? I wake up, I visit the bathroom, I head to the kitchen to make my coffee, I make my lunch, I drink my coffee, I head to the shower, I get dressed, I grab my things, I turn on my little Audible affirmations, I put them on in my car, and then I head to work and I sit in traffic. Most often I sit in traffic, and then I work a full day. And then I sit in more traffic coming home, and then maybe I toss in a few errands and a quick workout here and there. And then I make some dinner, perhaps a little TV or a chat on the phone with some family and friends, and then I'm off to bed, right? And then I wake up the next morning and I repeat the whole thing. And the next day I do it, and the next day, and so on and so forth. And guess what? I have also noticed that when we establish this like routine do loop, we stop noticing much of what we are doing altogether. In fact, I have even had days where I have had to drive back home because I couldn't remember if I unplugged the coffee pot or if my clothes steamer was still on or if I even left the flat iron on in the bathroom for that matter. And I have even called the building concierge too, truth be told, to check to see if I've locked my door to my condo. And I would be lying if I said I haven't done this more than once. So I have noticed that I have become so incredibly automatic in some areas of my life. And because of this, I'm becoming less and less present in those areas and largely going on like a complete autopilot, which is why I personally believe that this is one of the biggest reasons why life begins to feel like it's speeding past us. Because when we are intentional and present in our lives, we are expanding our life experience. Yet when we are on this autopilot mode, we are compressing our life experience. And I really want to highlight here too that when we choose to keep ourselves anchored in routine and life patterns, it is usually because we are unwilling to truly let go of the past. And I am guilty of this myself. And it's not the great past memories that I'm talking about either, right? It's not the ones that bring us sheer joy. No, it's the ones that are like that low vibe feeling kind of bad state, those thoughts and feelings of guilt and regret, sadness, disappointment, and shame, all of those super low vibe emotions that are derived from unhappy thoughts and memories. And these thoughts, as we mentioned earlier, also fuel our behaviors and how we react to events in our current lives. And something I learned too, which is pretty crazy, is that research has shown that our memory is highly reconstructive, meaning we often remember the past through emotional filters and repeated stories rather than a perfectly accurate recording, right? And I have even heard something like 50% of what we remember over time isn't even true. So if we think about that, right? Think about that. How many of us are not only emotionally attached to the past, but also attached to interpretations, fears, and identities that are connected to the past? And what we have learned together is what we think about, we bring about. So if much of our time is spent thinking and emotionally reliving the same experience over and over again, or as Dr. Joe Dispenza calls it, subconscious programming and automatic behavior, we will continue to broadcast the same energy, which means we are creating a future that is very similar to our past. Because rather than intentionally living in the present moment, we are living in an emotional extension of the past, which begs the question, How can we create something new for our lives if much of what we are thinking about is our past experiences? And come to think of it, I am going to say that I bet this is one of the reasons why people feel as though the thought of manifesting their desires is really frustrating, because they can tell themselves over and over again, I'm wealthy, I'm healthy, I'm loved, I'm successful, whatever the affirmation or practice or technique is. But if we are largely fixated on old identities, old pain, old fear, old limitations, then the new, present, and future desires and dreams are met with just so much resistance that it is massively difficult for us to manifest desires that we might have, which is why I think people eventually just give up and they fall back into what feels familiar. And they'll say things like, that manifestation stuff either doesn't work for me or it's not even a thing. So they will fall back into their past patterns, even if it doesn't serve their highest good and natural state of joy, because they will unintentionally keep recreating the same emotional state, the same reactions, and oftentimes the same life experiences over and over again. And then they're going to wonder why nothing ever seems to get better. To which I would say, because manifesting through the law of attraction and law of vibration absolutely works. And your life is currently a living proof of it, right? Because the universe doesn't know good or bad. It just brings us more of what we're asking for. And what truly, truly hurts my heart is that some people will remain in this life do loop and wonder why a whole 5 or 10 years of life can just pass them by and they will feel as though they've just been largely standing still. And what terrifies me is that some people can live an entire lifetime in this posture. But what gives me tons and tons of hope and brings me back to a very happy place is that we all have the power to change. And now we're going to talk about that, how we can do this, how we can just break out of the patterns and routine thoughts and behaviors that can keep us in that life do loop. And I'm going to say that it really starts with 2 main ingredients. The first is awareness, which I like to define as the part of us that notices our thoughts without becoming them. And then there's intention, which I like to define as placing our attention where we actually want our life to grow and living from a place where our actions stop happening by default and start happening by design. So with that in mind, we then have to become aware of our subconscious programming. And we can do that by observing ourselves and asking ourselves, how do we think and feel? And how do we react or respond when events in our lives occur in a very unagreeable kind of way? When we don't get that promotion, right? Or a relationship falls apart, or whenever someone just tells us no. Recognizing our thoughts and our emotions and behaviors means that we are becoming consciously aware. And that means that we can then stop being unconsciously controlled by a subconscious program. Or in other words, we can begin observing ourselves rather than simply reacting automatically. So awareness is the interruption. Awareness is noticing this thought no longer serves me. This reaction that I'm feeling is familiar and I don't like the way it feels. This fear that I'm experiencing is trying to pull me back in to an old identity. Awareness is what separates us from the subconscious program or pattern. And once we can observe the pattern, we can then begin to change it. And now this is when we fold in intention every single day, right? Placing our attention where we actually want our life to grow, because transformation does not happen accidentally. We have to make the conscious choice to choose our actions by design, not by default. And we can start small, right? Because it can feel very overwhelming. So start small. We can do things like speaking differently, thinking differently. We can protect our energy and we can respond versus react, and we can change our body language or just even change the way we physically choose to show up. And at first, I'm not going to lie, it will feel uncomfortable because our minds will be saying, you know what? This isn't our norm. This feels very strange. And it will want to pull us back toward what was familiar and predictable. But if we feel a level of discomfort, it's actually a good thing, because that discomfort is often evidence that we are stretching beyond the old version of ourselves. It is evidence that we are in a state of becoming. Even more exciting than that, we are in a state of raising our energetic frequency. Okay, so awareness and intention, right? Got it. So from there, let's talk a little bit about pattern interrupts. And this can be as simple as switching up some of our routines. Maybe we can take a different route home, listen to a new type of music, listen to an Audible book, eat lunch outside on a sunny day, take a few walks while we're at work during the day, right? I personally like to step out as often as I can if I have the time, and even just do one lap around the building that I work in, which is kind of equivalent to like a city block. So getting outside, giving yourself a new perspective, something to distract you and to bring you into the present moment. And we can also commit to connecting with friends a couple of times a week as we're driving home from work, right? Just make sure that you're doing this like with hands-free, please, because I'd love to make sure everybody's got 2 hands on the wheel, right? 10 and 2, or I think the new one is 4 and 6. Oh no, 4 and 5, right? Is that it? No. What it would be, 7 and 5? I don't know. I'm a 10 and 2 girl, so okay, I'm just going to leave it there. Anyway, so small changes, right? Small changes in our days can be something different, something unfamiliar, and can really make a huge difference, because we're going to be breaking the pattern and inserting some novelty, which will wake up the brain and it will pull us consciously back into our present moment. Okay, so now another really powerful technique for it, just intentionally reshaping our lives, is repetition and emotion, because what I am learning is that repetition and emotions are actually very powerful ways to help with rewiring our subconscious minds. And as we have discussed just a little bit ago, if we are continually repeating past behaviors and feeling past emotions and continuously just running the same stories from the past in our minds, then we are attracting more of the same energy. And this is what we are using to create our present as well as our future. And so the goal isn't necessarily to stop repetition, because we have learned about healthy habits and habit stacking. So we aren't looking to stop repetition. Rather, we are looking to become intentional about what we are repeating. And this is one of the reasons why I love audible affirmations so much. Even more than subliminals, if I'm honest, because I can actually hear the words and feel the emotions that they create for me. And because they typically run about 30 to 60 minutes, the subconscious mind is hearing really empowering truths over and over again. And eventually, sometimes sooner than you think, I'm just going to say, it becomes familiar because there is less and less resistance and more belief, mostly because it becomes a thought that we are thinking over and over again. And from here, our nervous system starts responding to these affirmations as if the words are natural and true to us. And so audible affirmations are a terrific tool to use for repetition. And if you don't have access to these, there are ways to create your own, and you are also getting and if you don't have access to these, there are lots of ways that you can just create your own. Like, you don't need to be listening to a recording. You can actually create your own. And you can do this just by when you're getting ready in the morning, or you're commuting to work, or you're out exercising, or even if you're just like going out for a walk anywhere, you can think to yourself or speak out loud affirmations. You can say, I'm healthy, I'm financially abundant, I am successful, I'm loved, I have such a terrific group of friends, I'm happy, I love my life, I love my home, I love my body, I love my family, I love my friends, I love my fur baby. You get the flick, right? There's so much to love. So many of the words that we're saying will remind us of how incredible we are. And if they feel awkward at first, that's okay, because if they represent how we want to feel and who we want to be, then let's just keep speaking it into our reality by repeating it to ourselves as often as possible until it becomes a familiar thought. And I'm just going to top off that familiar thought too with a very high vibe emotion to go with it. And speaking of emotion, something that is terrific for emotions is writing a letter to ourselves from our future self. And this is super easy to do. And we can even just send ourselves a text message too, if you want to. But I really appreciate the act of writing the letter. And when I do this, I actually pick out a time frame, like 6 months, a year, 5 years. Actually, I never do 5 years, but I am definitely a can I have this in 6 months kind of girl. But whatever the time frame is, I choose that, and then I write about how incredible things have unfolded for me. And we can write just about anything, right? We can write about opportunities that have come up, or how much our self-confidence has grown, how a level of healing has happened, the perfect partner that's arrived in our lives, and what it's like in that relationship with them, and the new career that we're aligned to now, or a new home, an incredible travel adventure, or even establishing financial abundance where we can afford anything that we want in our life, and along with helping so many others with our incredible financial wealth. I just love this technique, and I am going to have to do this at some point in time again because I haven't done one in a really long time, and I actually do really appreciate it. And I'm going to say too, what's really fascinating, and this never gets old with me hearing it, is that our minds don't fully distinguish between a vividly imagined emotion and a real one, right? So if you think about it, we are literally helping our bodies and our minds become familiar with the energy of our future by writing these letters before it has even manifested for us. And you might be thinking too, okay, well, that's all well and good. What do I do after I've read it for a little while and I got it? I have the image in my head. I feel the feelings in my heart. Then what do I do? What do I do with that? And I'll tell you what I do. I first thank the universe, and I always tack on this or something better. And then I hide the letter in my underwear drawer. And the reason that I place it there is no matter what happens, even if I decide to move, I will always pack my underwear myself. So I will always find this letter and it will be handy to me. So there's no way I'm going to leave this one behind. And I will say that I have done this before, and I have had the experience of finding the letter, and almost all of the things on it had come true for me. And the ones that didn't were exceeded by something even better. And you should give it a try. It's actually really, really fun. Okay, so let's see. The final technique. You know what? This one is very simple, and actually it's not very simple. It's simple to say. I don't know if it's simple to do because I struggle with it myself. And that is Slow down enough to actually experience life. Stop rushing, and instead, let's feel the warmth of our delicious morning coffee, or watch the sunset, watch the moon rise, listen when someone is speaking to us, feel the cool breeze when you're outside. And I actually did this with my dad not too long ago. We were out walking and it was super hot because my parents live in Florida, and I could feel this beautiful breeze on my face. And I stopped and I said, "Hey, Dad, stop for a second and just feel the breeze." And so we both just stood there, and we eventually just started laughing too, because my dad goes, "This feels so refreshing." And it was just so nice. And we were just so grateful, and we were so present together. So something very, very easy and simple to do, just taking that time to do it, it feels really happy. So taking time, right? Notice things around you, and let's allow ourselves to truly appreciate it, because maybe life isn't actually moving faster after all. Maybe we're just becoming less present for it. So whether we're practicing awareness and intention, interrupting routine patterns long enough to bring us into the present, reshaping our lives with repetition and emotion, or just slowing down to appreciate life around us, all of this will take practice. It takes lots of consistency and the desire to want to be present and conscious creators of our lives. And most importantly, it helps us to maximize our human experience and to truly embrace life every single day, not every decade, every day. And yeah, I think that's it. Oh, wait, really quick. Here in the United States of America, today happens to be Memorial Day. And I think many countries around the world have national days of remembrance. And that day is extra special because it honors fallen military members who lost their lives for our countries because they were brave, selfless, dedicated, and incredible humans. So in honor of them and with gratitude for their families, I want to offer my heartfelt thank you. Thank you, and a huge day of remembrance, and I'm grateful. And I also want to say that today is May 25th, which happens to be my boyfriend Michael's birthday. So happy birthday, Michael. I hope that this day kicks off the most magical year of your life thus far. Happy birthday. Okay. So now I'm going to say that's it for today. And I hope that you did enjoy this episode. I truly, truly do. And if you did, please help a girl out and rate, follow, leave a review, or even share the episode with a friend. All of this truly helps me out. And you know what? It really makes me feel a terrific level of joy too. I love knowing that folks are listening and enjoying this podcast. It definitely keeps me going. So thank you for that. I really appreciate you. And on that note, I am your host, Lisa Ryan. This is the Joy-Filled Universe podcast, where we explore all the tools and tricks that are going to make your universe even more joyful than it already is. And I will see you next week. Bye.